Hi, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. Ben here, joined by Matt and Mike this time to count down the top 5 supporting members of bands, by which we mean no lead singers, no lead guitar players. Pretty much everything else is fair game. At least in my mind, when we talked about this, I was thinking keyboard players, maybe a brass player, drummers, rhythm guitarists, etc.
Always forgetting about the basses, though.
Did I not say bass?
I don't think
Oh, God, of course, the bass players. Yeah. There's some great bass players, no doubt. So I don't know. There's more of us than usual. Anybody care to start?
Yeah, I think this is the first time we've done 3.
It is. And I just got those new lavalier mics on the one that is going to go up before this, and I was excited. Oh, that sounds great. Because the one thing that was missing about this show was the audio is a little boomy.
Right.
Now, of course, there's 3 of us, so I might as well not have bought it because I don't have enough.
Let's look at the positives, though. At least I don't look really short now in this one because we're all have even level chairs. So
every one of the videos we noticed where me and Mike are sitting next to each other, you see the window seal here and here because I cut the frame. Makes it look like he's super short. All right, well, I guess I'll go first. Couldn't hurt. So my number 1 is Chris Squire, the bassist from Yes. This dude is fantastic. Chris Squire, Geddy Lee, and a couple other guys from that late 60s to late 70s period in bass. They had this certain bass tone that they used, especially in prog rock. Very bright, but very sort of mellow at the same time. You know what I mean? It's not one of those punchy, muffled basses where you can barely pick out the notes. It rings out. It's very brassy almost sounding. Chris Squire is the best at it. Just listen to Roundabout and the bass work on that song and that whole record, Close to the Edge, is fantastic. Initially, when I heard this guy, I thought it was a Geddy Lee bass part. But when I was a kid, when I first heard Roundabout, I was just like, dude, that can't be somebody other than Geddy Lee.
Right.
But it's all in the fingers with these boys. You know, they play those old, what are they? They're not Squire. What are they, like Ricky basses, Rickenbacker basses? Yeah. Or I don't know if he plays one, but Geddy did for a while. And it's got that brass or metallic bridge that comes over the strings. And I think that's part of what the sound comes from. I don't know that for an absolute fact, but Chris Squire is awesome. He's a huge part of why that era of Yes is so damn good.
all right, my number 5 is Zach Hill of Hella and Death Grips fame. He's a math rock god. He is an insane drummer that nobody's ever heard of unless you're really into math rock or Death Grips. And the way he does the tuning of his drums is just so low. It sounds so tribal and violent. I would say the standout track in Hella is It's Been a Long Time Cousin. And of course, in Death Grips, you have No Love, which is just cymbals and absolute, just a horribly violent track. And he stands out in a way that most, hip hop drummers really don't. He makes kind of his own thing. And he does live drum tracks on hip hop songs, which is something that just doesn't happen.
We agreed on this in the past. That adds so much to the
It does.
of a hip hop project.
It makes the atmosphere of it just so much heavier. It's the best. And I had to put Zach Hill. I wanted to put somebody unsung on here at some point because I feel like the rest of it's kind of boilerplate. So that's my number 5.
Nice. So mine is Dave Grohl.
Shocker.
In Nirvana.
No, I told a few people about my list today, and I brought up Dave Grohl, and they said, "Oh, you can say Dave Grohl, Nirvana." No, I'm going to say Dave Grohl, Tenacious D. All right, drummer for Tenacious D. While he doesn't play the good majority of their live shows, he's recorded every studio album Tenacious D has put out.
Oh, okay.
He's the drum. He's in the movie. He played the devil in the movie.
Yeah.
So he's helping out in other ways aside from the music. Good supporting role there. Like just the drums on their albums sound so heavy, and they sound like Dave Grohl, and that's what Tenacious D needs in their drummer. And I don't know their touring drummer for their live shows, but he's killer as well. Shout out to whoever he is. Yeah, man. I'm trying to think. He played one live show like over somewhere, and it's either Australia or like Germany, something like that, man. And they had, Tenacious D just has like such a large fan base.
Yeah.
Just outside of America, just as like a good rock band.
Do people know that they're a joke? in like Germany?
I'm sure they do.
Or are they just like, oh, these are
After hearing their lyrics, there's no way.
I don't know, they're German, they'll still understand what's happening. It's
Right.
like, this is the rockin' show, and that guy who does like the jump kicks and acts like a child all the time is great. And it's just
Nacho
fat friend.
Libre. Anyway, that's my number 5.
That's a good pick. I never would have Dave Grohl as like part of Tenacious D.
I really wish you would have been like songs for the Deaf Dave Grohl, just like the one album Dave Grohl.
I couldn't. I was like, what else has he been a part of? I was like, them Crooked Vultures. I
Queens
was like,
of
no,
the Stone Age
Queens.
that's
for
solid.
1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, Queens is just Josh Homme, and then whoever he can like convince to do it for a record or two.
Put up with him probably.
Dude, I don't think like any of the same band members are there.
No,
Yeah.
it's just Josh
It's a
Homme.
revolving door. That's a solid pick. I never would have guessed that. Okay. My next one is Richard Wright from Pink Floyd. Had to put, can't do, it had to be either Richard Wright or Nick Mason, right? Because the other two guys, even though Roger plays bass, he's arguably one of the lead singers.
Yeah.
So that counts him out. Even though I do think he is a underrated bassist. I think he's quite good on bass, Roger. So Richard Wright on the keys, man. Nick Mason absolutely does what is required of him to make these songs great on drums, but rarely is flashy, rarely is in the fore. However, Richard Wright is very frequently in the fore, and you almost don't think about the fact that it's him. These massive orchestral organ swells and synthesizer swells like in Dogs. It's all over the wall. It's all over Animals, their best album. Some of the great stuff on Shine On You Crazy Diamond, just such cold, progressive, unique sounding keys work. That's what makes it all the more egregious that he was treated the way he was by
Right.
Roger. Basically just told like, you're just a fucking session guy now. We're not even going to keep you in the band. Shortly before they kicked Roger out of the band.
Right. I mean, look, this is what happens when you get the final cut. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, you take Richard off and you basically limit Dave and Nick.
Yeah.
And you get the final cut, which is, you and I agree, one of their worst records.
Right.
So yeah, had to have either Nick Mason or Richard Wright on this list because of my deep abiding love of Floyd. Ended up going with Richard Wright. I think his sound is a more part of Pink Floyd's unique sound than Nick is.
All right, so my number 4, I went with Tim Comerford, the bassist for Rage Against the Machine and Audio Slave. For years, I had wondered why he was never on these like top bassist lists because I always heard him. He always stood out to me, even though Zach and Tom and even Chris Cornell and Audio Slave, they're so great at what they do. I always was able to hear Tim, kind of doing his thing on the bass. He made the bass sound really cool. And of course, he has the iconic Killing in the Name bass riff. I mean, to be able to even be a little bit relevant with so many talented people around you, I think it speaks volumes to his abilities. And the bass is just, when you really sit down and listen to it, and on those, 6 records or so that he's on, it really is. He's the man. I've always loved Tim Comerford's work.
Take him out of those groups.
You can't. They're not as-
Replace him.
not as
It's
intense.
not the
It's not
exactly.
He's got a hell of a
Yeah.
fuzzy, heavy bass tone
His
too.
tone is amazing.
great.
It's massive. He actually fills in on Audio Slave for the rhythm guitar part, usually, when he's doing that crazy
Yeah.
solo stuff. There's usually not a rhythm guitar track. It's just that thick ass fuzzy
Yeah.
bass, like on Gasoline.
Yeah.
Fucking crazy bass tone on that song. That's a good pick.
Nice. All right, number 4 for me is Nate Worth. He's the auxiliary percussion for Ghost Note and Snarky Puppy is what he's known for. Ghost Note has fewer members. Snarky Puppy has a shit ton of members. But having groups like that, roles like an auxiliary percussion can get overlooked sometimes. But like I don't know if you're familiar with Ghost Note or Snarky Puppy at all.
I'm in the dark.
They're just they're like jazz, kind of jam band fusion stuff. Like they play just a lot of cool different stuff. They have check it out, man. Just any of their stuff is cool. It's all instrumental. They have some singers that are thrown in their music here and there, but if you check out their recordings and their live music too. So their recordings, they're super intricate. Like everybody has a role to play, and they play it, and it's great. And Nate Worth does his role in it. Like even if it's kind of hard to hear, you'll be able to hear it. But when they play live, dude, both Ghost Note and Snarky Puppy, everybody's just jamming. Like it's a jam session. And he's over there doing the same stuff he was doing on the recordings. But it's a lot, you're like Pacemaker on Ghost Notes album. I think it's like the one with like Swagism on it. Like most of that is kind of, I don't want to say spacey because it's not spacey music, but you can listen for space in that in those songs, that song in particular, Pacemaker, and where you think there's going to be space, he's just throwing in like cymbal hits or like bongos or.
So he's not on a kit. It's like other stuff.
It's like yeah, congas, shaker. It's like stuff you'd hear in more world music. That's a better description for Snarky Puppies. That I'd say they're like world music and jazz combined.
Solid pick.
Yeah. So Mayworth, man.
I'm in the dog.
Cool.
I haven't heard of either of those. I'll have to check those out. So again, this was the first thing that came to my mind when I was thinking about supporting members of bands that were part of what made those bands great. Got to put Malcolm Young from AC/DC on there, despite Mike's hatred of AC/DC.
He's the one that just died recently, right?
Yeah, not too long ago. He was the older brother, I believe, of Angus Young, the lead guitar player. Obviously, they had a couple frontmen through the course of their career, and a drummer who likes to hire hitmen and have people killed. We'll gloss over that. Malcolm Young was never the flashy guy. I can't find any live performance of AC/DC where he's not playing exactly the perfect part. You know what I mean? So there's a drawback of like, okay, it's not super performative guitar playing, but dude, the riffs make AC/DC. The way that rhythm part of the guitar works with the drums makes every one of those songs. You take Back in Black, for those about to rock, every song off both those records works perfectly because the interplay between the rhythm guitar, which is just mirrored by the bass. That's why I'm not even talking about the bass, and the drums. So whenever there's these simple, straightforward drum beats, there's a awesome chugging guitar riff that works in the spaces between the kick and the snare bits. You listen to any song on Back in Black, and the reason that works so well and jams so well is you've got just on the drums, and the guitar never does that. It's always it's always in between, the space in between.
Yeah.
It works perfectly, and he was a master of that. So many people try and do what he does, but can't quite come close to writing that many catchy, hummable guitar riffs. They're catchy, like a vocal melody is catchy. That's how good those guitar riffs are. So
Even though like any of the music,
what composed, like arranged it and stuff.
Yeah, that or
I'm not
like notable songs.
I'm not sure. I don't know that he ever appears on the lyrics on that side of things. Not that I've seen, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not. AC/DC's got a ton of records, and I'd be lying if I said I heard them all. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 essential ones, and then basically, in my opinion, you can kind of just sweep the rest away. They put out the same album 7 times in a row, like for their last 7.
Yeah.
I mean,
nothing in this century. It's
safe to skip.
Yeah, safe to skip.
But I had to give him a shout out, man. So much of AC/DC's identity isn't the lead guitar or the vocals, even though both those things are essential parts. So much of it is just the riff.
My number 3, and I feel bad doing this because it's such an easy one. It's Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers. He plays the bass like it's a lead instrument, and I mean, look, John Frusciante and Anthony Kiedis and Chad Smith are all amazing. But there's a reason Flea is more or less the most well-known player in the band. He's just loud and he plays crazier than any other bass player out there. Really, outside of like guys like Geddy Lee, they're super, super popular bass players, even John Paul Jones. Everybody knows Flea. Everybody loves Flea. And I mean, obviously there are songs like By the Way, where he's crazy, when they hit the, that bridge part. You have the Higher Ground cover, which is absolutely absurd. You have Around the World, and they're more funky stuff. I mean, Flea is the star of the show more than he is not, it feels like, for a very good band and for a very popular band. And it felt like a disservice to not have Flea on there at some point, even if it is kind of generic to have him on there.
Well, he earns that spot. I would agree. One of the few guys that's like Doesn't ever sing, doesn't write the songs, or whatever. He's famous outside of the band just for being a bass
He's
player.
just crazy. He's just the crazy bass guy. I mean,
Yeah, and he does those shirtless backflips at
Yeah.
45 years old, so.
and his really awkward. Have you ever seen when he did the national anthem of the Lakers game? Probably like 6-7 years ago.
On bass?
Yeah, it was
He
really
played it.
weird.
Chad Smith did the same thing on drums for a Pistons game in like 2003, like when they were good.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I saw Flea. I never seen Back to the Future 2, so I watched that the other day.
Mhm.
Flea is
Of course he is.
in
Is he really?
Back to the Future 2.
You remember the wild thornberries?
Yeah.
He's the monkey child. He's Donnie.
He has an amazing acting career too.
He
He's
does. He
he's
just
in the
shows
Big
up in
Lebowski. He's in a lot of big
Yeah.
Oh,
stuff.
shit, he is in the Big Lebowski. Yeah, I forgot about
He's
that.
one of the weird European guys.
With, what's that guy's name? He's the Swedish guy who's famous just for being Swedish. He appears in a bunch of these bit
I don't know
parts.
his name.
The
But...
guy who talks like this in the
Yeah.
movie? Yeah, that guy.
All right, I'm gonna go with a guitar player here. It's Darryl Sturmer. Is that how you say it?
Swedish again, there you go.
He's
Nice segue.
he's
There you go.
the guitar player for Phil Collins in Genesis. He's the lead. I'm gonna lean more towards the Phil Collins solo stuff instead of the Genesis because he is like the lead guitar and bass player for him. Just kind of looking at his resume, he's currently listed as their lead guitar player and bass player. But for Phil Collins, he's for that kind of show, your band is just a supporting role. Like Phil Collins is going to do his thing. He's going to write all the songs. You just need to show up, do your part, have fun with it. And I think Darryl does a good job with that. I was watching a few live shows of Phil Collins playing, not in the air tonight. Well, yeah, I guess that was one of them. But they're all, the performance has been the same for like decades. And it's just kind of Phil Collins, like the spotlight's on him and he's walking around the stage.
Mhm.
But you see, the band is center stage, and they're just having fun. And I think Darryl does a good job of that, just playing what he needs to play. He's kind of, I saw a comment Phil Collins made on him, and he said he's like a part-time, full-time studio and touring guitar player. He just kind of comes and goes.
Yeah.
But he's there when you need him. Okay, you said John Frusciante earlier.
Mhm.
I'm like, man, he like he's back in the band. He's back in Red Hot Chili Peppers now because he wanted to be,
Right.
and the band wanted him to be
He
there.
just gets kicked out every now and again.
Yeah, and if he gets kicked out, he's kicked out. But that's what Darryl Staumer. I said it wrong.
I assume it's
Different
something
from-
Stormer or something like that.
is like that too, and he's he can shred, dude. I watched a couple of his solo stuff. Like, he is an amazing guitar player.
Hmm.
He can sweep that the guitar for sure.
That's another name I didn't know. That's a good pick. So this is probably the one on my list that could most easily be called generic or boilerplate, and that is Travis Barker, notably of Blink-182, but also from all the bands that came out of the initial Blink-182 breakup, Plus 44, Boxcar Racer, and he has collaborated with absolutely everyone in popular
He's
music.
doing stuff with Machine Gun Kelly right now.
And he's married a Kardashian.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know if that's a plus or a minus.
Oh, I mean, look, Travis Barker just kind of shows up places.
He does. He's kind of like the Flea. He looks like the Flea too. Very crazy,
He
tatted
and
up
Flea are
guy.
just, one and the same.
He did a weird ass thing for a while where he was specifically working with rappers. Soulja Boy comes to mind, in that late 2000s period. Obviously, everybody knows him from Blink-182 and his other punk endeavors. Boxcar Racer, I thought, was not fantastic, but Plus 44, the one record they did called When Your Heart Stops Beating, I thought was pretty good. But Blink-182 is the main thing for him. What needs to be said, really? What Blink-182 does musically is uninteresting, if not for the skill of Travis Barker. right? It's what people call guitar bitch bass, playing just the root note of a power chord, and then the guitar is strumming the power chord. Not interesting at all on the face of it. You add Travis Barker's manic, energetic, just I don't even know, just so much fun that he plays in these
I
super
mean, he's
fast.
easily the best musician in Blink. It's
100.
not even fucking close.
100%, no argument. I don't even think anybody else in Blink would.
And I love Tom DeLonge. I have no problem saying Tom DeLonge is my favorite member of Blink, but he's not even remotely as good of a musician as
Plus,
Travis Barker.
He's too busy lately chasing
Yeah,
aliens.
he's ridiculous.
Although I do love Angels and Airwaves. I thought that was a really cool project. It was like progressive pop punk, I was like, it was pretty cool. Longer songs, more ambitious sort of instrumental palette, but I got sidetracked. So yeah, Travis Barker, fantastic supporting artist. And he has a dual role, like you were talking about the studio guys. He does that a lot, but he also was never the front man of any band that he was a part of. So he's doubly qualified to be on this list.
He has a lot. I think we have a buddy, Brian, who's on the few of these podcasts. He's telling me he's making some music and was using some Travis Barker backing tracks
Yeah.
he found, and those drums. He didn't tell me at first. He showed me a project, and like, man, that sounds good. Like those drum parts are killer. It's like, yeah, they're Travis Barker backing tracks.
No wonder they're
I'm like,
good.
oh, I can hear it's Travis Barker.
Yeah. He plays the shit out of those drums, dude.
My number 2 is another generic one, but I had to do it. Keith Moon, Moon the Loon from The Who. In my opinion, maybe the greatest drummer of all time. He is an absolute phenomenon. He was crazy. He's not a big drum solo guy, but he brought, even without that, a certain attitude, a certain feeling towards the drums. He was a technical genius. He played like nobody else. He was such a special musician, and he was such a big part of the Who's, their image of what they were. I mean, he's definitely a top 3 to 5 drummer, maybe number 1 in my opinion, but he's so good. And I'd say Won't Get Fooled Again is maybe a signature track. Maybe Bellboys is up there. There's a few really, really good Keith Moon tracks, but I'd say across the board, he's an excellent, excellent drummer.
Yeah, he's no pocket drummer. He's just playing like he doesn't really solo, but he's not playing like the backbeat. He's like kind of just going ham.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna play. You know what? What's his name? Pete Townsend's gonna play the guitar like that, like a lead instrument. I'm gonna play drums, like a lead instrument.
And he overcame the technical limitations of recording quality in his time to come through still with a sound that's instantly recognizable just based on the playing.
Yeah.
Because those recordings are technically shit. Like the quality of them is not great at all. God, that kick drum is massive that he uses. Have you
The
seen
way he plays too, he's like Travis Barker. He just he's not playing gentle.
He's not going half at all. He never went half. He went every bit of what he had. He gave it every single time.
Penultimate rock star personality and lifestyle too.
Yeah,
that's a big part of Keith Moon's image. Is just trashing hotels.
I mean, Keith Moon is a huge part of what the rock star image is. He's such an important part of what the Who's image is.
Yeah.
R.I.P. That's why
R.I.P.
he lived the rock star life, and he died at a young age because of it.
Yeah.
All right, my number 2 is Matthew Ramsey. He's I don't think he has a main band to my knowledge. I don't know him super well, aside from the group I'm going to talk about, which is he plays bass for Sean Martin trio or trio. Sean Martin is one of the keyboard players for the Snarky Puppy Band. He's one of my favorite keyboard synth players. So he's linked up with that Nate Worth guy I was talking about earlier. Mike Mitchell is the drummer for this Sean Martin trio group, and he is I don't want to say he overplays, but he kind of overplays. He's an amazing drummer, don't get me wrong, but he's just playing, he's everywhere. And so with this group too, because it's this group is more of a kind of funky soul style. There's no guitars, it's just bass, keys, and drums. Another instrumental thing. Matt's role is he's like playing the pocket, like just kind of whatever he needs to play there, while the solos are going on, and he throws his own little variations with like rhythm and just harmony and whatnot in there as well. But yeah, like when Sean Martin takes all the melody lines, while he's doing the melody. Ramsey, dude, he just is in this syncopated harmony thing with the piano riff. It's really nice. It's very nice just to have that like syncopation in there. And I think just going back to Sean Martin and how they met, I think they started the project they got together on was the Seven Summers album. They did, let's say 2015, around then.
Mm-hmm.
But 2 songs, I think they only have this one 3-0 album online right now. Their live stuff's awesome too, don't get me wrong. I'd much rather listen to that than the studio stuff. But if you're listening to their studio album, listen to it's Afro Blue and The Rising Sun. And I think you'd be able to hear that kind of how I described his bass playing. For
Nice.
Sure. Those 2 are awesome songs.
A lot of stuff
For
from you
sure.
today that I've never heard of.
No.
I'm missing out, I guess. Snarky Puppies and what was the other one?
Ghost Note,
Yeah.
Sean Martin, all those guys. And they're linked up. Last week we were talking about like Mono Neon. And,
Yeah.
Mono Neon's like linked up with those guys
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Revolving cast of
Yeah.
characters over there.
He's in Ghost Note. He's the bass player for Ghost Note.
UK based? This deal?
The what? No.
No?
America.
Oh, am I wrong? I thought Mono Neon was. Is that an American band?
He's Mono Neon is a bass player. That's his.
Oh, that's his
stage
name. Oh, jeez.
He's from Memphis, I think.
See, I'm totally
And
lost.
all these guys, I think all these guys are based out of Dallas area.
You're coming heavy with the stuff I don't know. Clearly. So my number one, the ultimate in my mind, when I was thinking about who's a guy who's in a famous band who nobody thinks about his contribution, right? Because you talk about, none of us put Neil Peart on this list, but even though he fits our criteria of a supporting musician, he's not flying under anybody's radar, right? Everybody knows how good he is when they listen to a song. So I was interested in this, and ultimately he was number 1 on my list. So this is Michael Anthony. There's some fireworks. I don't know what they're celebrating. It's just a random Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday, gentlemen.
We made it, another day, I guess. So he's the bassist for Van Halen, right?
Mhm.
And he is such a huge part of that Van Halen sound. The bass is big, it's rich, it's dense, it's heavy, it's simple, which is why he doesn't get talked about a whole lot. You talk about Running with the Devil, right? It's just one note. The whole bass line is basically just one note, but it's played perfectly right in the pocket. The tone is perfect. And Michael Anthony sings the high vocal harmonies on a lot of those Van Halen songs that are a huge part of what make that.
Does he did on Running with the Devil there?
Yeah. Running with the Devil. Yeah. Boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom. You know, and it's like,
Yeah.
dude, that is a huge part of what makes that band sound, but it's nowhere near as flashy as Eddie's playing, you know, or the
Right.
singing on whoever's singing. But he also went on later to play with Chickenfoot with Sammy Hagar, who was the singer for Van Halen for a period. I've never really liked Sammy Hagar that much, but I like the music of Chickenfoot.
Not a big Van Hagar fan, no?
No, not really.
Not for you?
I don't hate it. I mean, I don't know. It's just not as good as the original, as is so often the case, right?
Yeah.
But Joe Satriani is also in that band, and Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers. So it's a pretty high caliber
In the Chickenfoot group?
Chickenfoot, pretty high caliber super group.
Yeah.
You know, they end up sounding very cohesive. They don't sound like just a bunch of guys doing what they're known for together, right? They
Right.
come together nicely. And to just put a final point in my argument in Michael Anthony's favor, he has his own line of hot sauces.
What are they called?
It's like Mike's or something. I don't know. It's something like, but they're fucking great. So every time I see them, I buy them because they're really, really hot and delicious. So there you go. That's also a reason I put them at number 1.
All right, so as Where are they, Kroger?
No, they don't have big distribution. I've only seen them at Whole Foods.
All right, that's the reason to go to Whole Foods. I hate Whole Foods, but I'm willing to go now.
Or no, sorry, not Whole Foods.
Trader Joe's.
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
So, less scary Whole Foods.
Yeah, right.
Whole Foods is too Whole Foods. Trader Joe's, I'm a little bit more willing.
Yeah, Trader Joe's.
All right. As we said, none of us picked Neil Peart mainly because I believe that either one of these guys are going to pick him. So I went instead with John Bonham of Led Zeppelin, who, in my opinion, is right up there with Keith Moon as perhaps the greatest drummer of all time. I know you said beforehand that he just plays loud. I think very highly of John Bonham. I think
What a criticism.
When the Levee Breaks is just such an intense beginning song, just for the drums to come in to set the tone. It works so well. And then you have, Moby Dick, which is just more or less a glorified drum solo on its own. And it reminds me, honestly, a ton of Whiplash, like the ending of it.
I'm listening.
Look, you don't understand. I work in radio. I'm good with distractions. Like, I watch people walk around me all the time and just have to keep riffing. I understand this. No, but Moby Dick is the signature John Bonham song. I mean, Led Zeppelin may be, from the individual sum of its parts, the best, cohesive rock group. You have Robert Plant, who I'd say is a top 5 singer. John Paul Jones is a top 5 bass player. You have Jimmy Page, who I'd say is a top 5, guitar player, and John Bonham's a top 3 drummer. And even then, John Bonham is such an integral piece of that puzzle. Without him, there is no Led Zeppelin. They're not the same way. They don't invent, hard rock and heavy metal the way, or they don't create it the way that we know it. And they're not as influential of a group without a guy like John Bonham at the helm of the rhythm section. So I have to go with John Bonham. It's an easy pick.
Damn, name a more influential band than Led Zeppelin.
Other than
the Stones,
Beatles, and then after that, it's tough.
Pretty influential.
Beatles, I guess you'd probably give it to them.
But I would still say I take the individual members of Led Zeppelin over the individual members of the Beatles. I mean,
not a big fan of Ringo.
No, I think Ringo is like tying a cinder block around their ankles and throwing them in the ocean. Like, that's what he does for that band.
I'm kind of a Ringo apologist.
I'm not. I'll never be the Ringo apologist.
But we're getting off track.
I think I don't know. Yeah, kind of how you were saying, take them individually. While the Beatles probably had a more successful career as solo projects. Zeppelin had some. I don't think Jimmy Page has done much, but JPJ and Robert Plant have had successful careers in their own standings too. Just like Robert Plant's super big into his bluegrass music, and I think he has a property in Kentucky.
Those are really
somewhere in eastern Kentucky. I think he has like a horse farm or something.
Just stumble upon the Robert Plant horse farm.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, there it is.
He owns the castle in Versailles.
Of course.
No,
I believe it.
I'm just making that up.
Look, as much as those guys love Tolkien, I believe you.
Yeah. Them and Rush, man, writing about Lord of the Rings.
All right.
Go ahead.
My number one is Biff Adams. He is the drummer was the drummer for Merle Haggard.
Rip.
Yep. Rip to both of them. Biff died last year. He had congestive heart failure. Yeah, man. He kind of, I don't want to say he coined it, but he definitely made it popular in country music, given the so-called country shuffle. That, that's pretty much like he's country, especially at that time. There's not like drums aren't heavy. It's like you got to keep it. It's like opposite of all the drummers that we've listed tonight. He's the opposite. He's just a pocket drummer. Super light on the bass drum. He might have some rim clicks, few fills here and there, but it's all. If anything's heavy on his drumming, it's cymbals and hi-hats. he with Merle too. He was the bus driver, the bus driver for the tours and the publicist for Merle Haggard for many years.
Okay.
Probably, I wouldn't say it's my favorite album. Just one I've been listening to recently by Merle Haggard is the Go Where the Lonely Go. And just picking a few songs off of that album that kind of have that Biff playing style is Shopping for Dresses is one. If I Left It Up to You, Why Am I Drinking? Those are a few examples of just that country shuffle, that country swing, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think he was the longest, like, throughout the Merle Haggard music run there. I think he's the longest playing drummer for that group. The guy before him, I think it was Eddie Burris. He played on a lot of Merle Haggard hits, but I mean, Biff probably played those songs too, like on tour, you know.
Yeah. What a name.
Biff Adams.
Speaking of Back to the Future, what's the name of the bullet?
Biff. Yep.
Biff was the-
That's the first time every time I hear Biff, I go, oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the name of the douchebag from the first film.
Yeah.
Well, this was our mistake. I don't know, hopefully not too much of that came through, but we are recording this in downtown Baghdad. As you could probably hear from outside the gunfire.
Hey, look, it's Tuesday, May 11th. We made it. I mean, look, this is what the rapture was supposed to be yesterday. We did it.
What was going on here?
I'm kidding.
Oh, okay. I was like, what?
Some jackass at some places like, I can't believe it, May 11th, we did it.
Well, that'll do it for us. This was a pretty easy list to put together. This is the kind of list that we could just rattle off the top of our heads if we had to.
Yeah.
You know, not like Matt's pick last week, which was tough.
Too
May
tough.
5th records.
Top 5 albums that came out May 5th.
Absurd.
That's so specific. I love it.
Thank God Kamasi Washington and Chris Stapleton came out that day.
Thank God for me. Chris Stapleton had 2 that came out on the 5th. Lucky me. Well, that'll do it for this. Matt, Mike, thanks for joining me. We'll have to do some more of these in person. Get Ryan in here sometime
Yeah.
when he's got the time. So that'll do it for now from us. Thanks for watching.